Previously on the Brand Spaceship show.
First on Made by My Lady, do you want to preface this Velotric e-bike campaign?
In the end, hopefully it looks perfect. But every single story of the making of a commercial, the making of a film, I often think is more entertaining than the content itself.
I took a picture of how close the car came from hitting me.
Somehow we all choose to do this as a job, but it really is hilariously difficult to get right.
It's chaos content.
Okay, so we had 6 cameras, stock footage, and also CGI all plugged in 45 seconds. We feel that the more varied textures and looks and feels, the more dynamic a spot becomes. And I think this spot in particular is pretty representational of that.
Lost in space, but that's okay. Climb aboard the Brand Spaceship today.
I want to walk through how we shoot it. If you want to get a bunch of content in a short period of time, I want to talk about music, sound design, our workflow with that, using loops, using drums. But how we treat stock music and how we treat stock footage are the same. You don't want to make a stock footage ad necessarily if you don't have to. We had across both of our core spots, we had 4 scenarios. We had a dad and a daughter. We had a gal who was picking up groceries and taking them home. And we had this gal who was doing yoga in the park. And then the other gentleman who was delivering packages. We had them being shot in different ways at all times. One of them would be riding around, taking selfies. One of them would be followed by me and I'd be capturing the driving footage. One of them would be shooting either on a GoPro or an Insta360 for some like interesting texture-based footage. And then the last one would be being shot by the drone pilot. To put in perspective how rare this is, our really talented drone pilot, and we'll find his contact and stick it right in the screen because he deserves a shout out. He did an excellent job on the shoot. I feel like he was almost a little surprised because he was like, okay, so what's the shot we're getting? I'm like, listen, your job is to get as many sweet shots as possible. Mostly, I'm using these as establishing shots for the city. So you want to show people riding bikes from up high in various different circumstances, find interesting, and I pointed out a few places. I'm like, this looks cool. Over there looks cool. Grab a shot over here. And we went over the footage he got at the end of the day, but I think it was almost surprising to him. Then I was like, no, you're now directing the segment. Because this is the thing. Because of the way we like to capture content, we like to capture tons of it. And if I had to be in charge of every single thing, it would just take too long. So we divide and conquer on our sets. I'm a big proponent of this. Yes, there's a time and a place for these really structured, high-end, shoot with the best camera, shoot with the best lenses situations. But also, depending on what you're capturing, I mean, an iPhone might be good enough. Okay, let's jump into the next.
Let's have a look-see, and then let's talk through it, all right?
Because it's fun. Okay, Jared, I'm prompting you now. I want to talk about music, sound design, our workflow with that, using loops, using drums. Producer Jared, everyone, he is a talented musician, and sometimes, in a pinch, he actually composes for us. And if you've ever heard the beginning of this show, that's the beautiful voice of producer Jared and his own jingle for the Brand Spaceship.
That is.
Hit it.
Lost in space, but that's okay. Climb aboard the
Brand Spaceship, he's lost in space and he isn't on Earth. Yeah.
That's how it goes. Ryan's heard it.
Okay, so talk about this in terms of how music and sound design dynamics impact the pacing for this specific type of video. What is the difference between just taking one track and laying it underneath versus what we do? How do we do it differently? How is this a representation of that?
One of the things, Ryan, you talk about a lot is in every video we make, especially narrative commercials like this, is finding that the highs and lows of narrative. The big moment should feel very big. The quiet moment should feel very quiet to emphasize how big those big moments feel, the dynamics, right? And this is something that people talk about in music. It's the reason why before the last chorus of a lot of songs, it's very common to have a very quiet, stripped down, what we call a down chorus, right? They just hit the piano keys, they sing the chorus, and then bang, they have the loudest chorus yet. Those dynamics are really important, not only in music, but in film, right? If every moment in Mission Impossible is loud, 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 it's all big, then it loses its impact very, very quickly. And this is a microcosm of that. You want to show the fun, exciting high moments. You want to show the zen, relaxing, quiet moments, and you want to fit them all into 45 seconds. Now, that's very, very difficult to do with just visuals, right? So what do you do with music? Well, in those big moments, that music should hit. In the quiet moments where they're just hanging out at the park, they're having a picnic together, it's a very special human moment. You can't have that wak, 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 right? Because you are trying to convey that this is a quiet, special moment that also serves the louder moments by giving them the space to be loud.
So I want to talk about your process on this, Jared. Like most, I think all filmmakers, when I really started, it was like, what did Thomas Newman just make? Put this under my shitty footage I shot on mini DV, right? And then you evolve to buying stock audio libraries, right? And you just put the single track and it's like, that really brings it up. And you can tell, you can feel it. The next level of emotion is the up and down. The perfect example of this is every movie trailer you ever seen. One, the cliche is that they literally take a song you know and then they like remix it with the emotion of the video. Like, I'm sure we can find this example where it'll be a song you've heard of, but now it's dark tones. It's like the major key becomes minor key, and I'm sure I'm using the wrong words, but they basically just shift it around to make it a little scary, and you're like, oh, that's the thing I know, but now it's scary. Yeah. So that is like our pinnacle, and that's where we head now. My Lady used to be doing the same thing, which is one track underneath the video. My curiosity here, Jared, is when we're working with a track, and this happens often, and I'm like, this track doesn't quite get us there. What's the process for you as a composer, which hopefully you're cool with me calling you a composer, with a music composer, to work with a track that we don't want to delete? We just want to add to it. Because one of the things I don't think our clients even realize that we do is we often are taking the stock music that we find, and then we're creating layers on top of it, deleting layers whenever we can get a hold of the stems, figuring out ways to filter it so that it gets out of the way of different sound design elements we want to bring forward. How does that work on the music end for someone like yourself?
A lot of really good stock music won't give you just the 15, 30-second instrumental track that is all the same elements all at once. You're going to find sections where it's just bass instruments. There's no drums. You're going to find sections where it is, just the higher end or mid-range instruments and there's no bass. So what I would do is I would take that track, and first of all, you got to identify what's not working, right? Okay, the drums come in, but they're half time, they're slower. You want something that's full time, so it's like a quick beat, right? So what I would do is I would take that section without the drums and loop that and start building out drums that work with that, so that we can take a bit that we do like from the stock music and change the things that we don't like by just stripping out parts. A lot of times with stock music, you're not going to get the stems where you can take, I like this track, I don't like that track, I like this track, I don't like that track, and do it that way. But what you can do is find the sections where the elements aren't in use and pull those and build on top of them.
This points to something that to me is core in sort of this next level of creating content, which is that this new world where there's stock music, there's stock footage, etc. That's great. If you just use that, you're stuck at this level. The second you're able to use that as a starting point to then be elevated, I think is when you get into the next level and you can really work with the biggest brands. And brands, when you're looking at the content from the best agencies, that to me is really the difference. It's finding the dynamics, not just using the default, really figuring out how to find the emotion and the roller coaster ride of the content.
The other thing is, obviously for this, the music isn't playing throughout the whole thing. In those moments where the music is not playing, you need to have sound design that is complementary to the music, right? We have an amazing sound designer named Daco. Shout out Daco, my guy.
Shout out Daco.
laser noises. And one thing that he's really, really great at is taking the key of the song, taking the tempo of the song, and finding supporting and building supporting sound design elements. So when we get into those quiet moments, it is very, very subtle. But if like the flute sound at the end of one of these spots is in a different key, if it's in the same key, it's something completely different. It still sounds connected.
Sound design is basically music. My argument is sound design is music, right? There's no difference. It's all about whatever hits your ear and telling a story. So they all have to work together. Going back to what I was saying right before that, though, you're stuck at one level if you just take the stock. If you add to it, which is what you're talking about, do we tweak sound design to make sure it's in the same key? And I'm going to say all the wrong music notes, tones, concepts, but how we treat stock music and how we treat stock footage are the same. You don't want to make a stock footage ad necessarily if you don't have to. Now, you can add graphics to stock and then it becomes something new. You can make something entirely out of stock, but it's really hard to make that feel unique and like it's custom to that brand. What I would like for you to do, Jared, is rewatch this video and tell me when you see stock footage.
When I see stock footage?
Yeah, did you know there's stock in this?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me when you see it.
Okay, this is stock, is it not?
I actually think that's one of our drone shots. It
Really?
might be stock, actually. It might be stock, but here we go. We already proved my point. I don't even know because I didn't look at every single shot we got from the drone, right? Like I got selects from our editor. But the point is that it should be believably yours. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I'm going to do it in half time because I know some of these are, okay, ducks.
Yep.
Ducks are stock.
They're not ducks, but yes,
Ducks.
those are.
Oh, sorry.
Those are ducks?
These flying lions are stock.
They are. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Juo, who's the editor on this, the lead editor, I think some other people helped him with it, but he edits our best stuff. And he also does color correction. You match it with color, you make it believably a part of the process. And also, this is the other benefit of a shoot like this. You have all these different textures. You have all these different types of cameras. So if there's a little bit difference between them, and I don't even think that's what's happening, it's okay. And again, somebody says we need a bike commercial set in Austin, Texas, and all of a sudden we just show stock footage of bikes. I mean, it wouldn't be the right bikes, and we just show Austin, Texas. It's going to be really boring. But if you capture all the pieces that tell the core story, then stock is just, it's icing on the cake. It's the cherry on top. It's that last little pasha, that last little taste. Now, I will say one thing I do not know. There's a lot of these, if you play this back one more time. Okay, so as you watch this, one of the things that happens throughout is there's all these blurry cutaways, right? I am not sure if these are blurry moments from me whip panning the camera before I turned it off, which, by the way, was not meant to be a shot, right? We just happened to keep rolling because I was by myself, or if that's like blurry stock footage. And it doesn't matter because the thing was we found the aesthetic within that sort of fully moving camera vibe.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the other moment. That's the other moment that's planned out. When they're sitting there in the picnic, I want to talk really briefly on this. That's the perfect shot. That shot is what people might call a money shot. There's this joyous little girl having so much fun with her dad. She's backlit. It looks really nice. We shot it with the best camera we could. Once we get that shot, right, that high-end shot, you can put anything on either side of it because you've already shown as a filmmaker, as a brand, that you know how to capture the best. Once you capture the best once, everything else can be anything, and everyone's going to assume that it's an aesthetic choice. Now, whether they think that aesthetic choice is a good one or not, that is in the eye of the beholder. But I want this to be considered when we talk about the blocks method, we talk about upcycling content. You really only need a handful of things that are super high end to demonstrate that your brand is at a certain level. Then you can literally, if you intercut this with iPhone footage that her and her dad took later on because you gave them the bike, and then you said for the next 3 weeks, can you just go on a bike ride once a week and iPhone yourself and then send it to us? We'll give you the bike in exchange. All of a sudden you have all this other content for social content. And when you wrap it in the wrapping paper of the high-end footage that you got in a single day, now all of a sudden you've given much more legs to this content.
Yeah, and you can see the cutaways here too. The GoPro here.
That's a GoPro. And no one cares. No one looks at this and goes, oh God, they cut away to a GoPro.
And it's treated.
Yes, that is a thing to consider. If it can't match the quality, treating it a certain way makes sense. One of the things we'll do even on this show is we'll go black and white when we want to zoom in because it gets grainy. This is only a 1080p signal. So we zoom in and it starts to look
Little peek behind the curtain for you there.
totally, but it's
Yeah.
valuable information, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to juxtapose something that looks better against something that looks worse, giving it a little grain, in this case, going 4:3 instead of going 16:9, changing the aspect ratio, it defines it as an aesthetic choice, not as something that is a mistake, not as something you couldn't accomplish. And as we go into this world of how do we scale up content and keep the price low, we have to think of creative ways to capture lower cost content. I mean, there's no first AC, second AC, there's no camera person even connected to this GoPro. We connected it to the bike, hit record and said, go for a bike ride. That is how we captured it. That is as close to free as anything you could get on a set. And yet it ends up being many people's favorite moment.
Yeah.
Right? She's smiling on the bike.
I hope this has been super valuable to our viewers. A lot of what we talk about is, conceptual, and this is practicing what we preach. This is showing you it in practice. Thank you for sticking with us. I mean, I love doing this.
Right? I'm just in space. I need things to talk about. So, it's fine for me. Thank you for being here. This has been the Brand Spaceship. I'm Ryan Sheffer. That is producer Jared, the best producer on Earth. He should come to space and save me. Maybe next time.